episode 3, we have Dr. Elayna Fernandez joining us. She is a 5-time TEDx speaker and the founder of her own blog, The Positive Mom, among many other things. Join us as we discuss how to navigate positivity and struggles through life. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Today we have Dr. Elayna Fernandez here joining us. Elayna, could you please give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me here, Ashley. My name is Elayna Fernandez, and I am an entrepreneur and a mom and a storyteller. And what can I say? I call myself a student of pain because of all of the tragedy and turmoil and also trials that I've had in my life who have made me or which have made me who I am. And I believe that being a student of pain is really the mission of my life to study not only my own pain, but the pain that everyone suffers, because I believe that pain is the common thread of humanity.
Right. And what would you say was maybe your first experience that wanted you to examine pain on a closer level and also piggybacking off that helped you experience life through a more positive lens?
I love that. I can tell you that since a very young age, I was actually 5 years old when I was lying in bed and staring at the ceiling. It was a rusted tin ceiling, and thinking about how I didn't want to be alive anymore. And I remember thinking, I'm done. This is too much. Life is too hard. I don't belong here. So struggling with suicidal thoughts from such a young age, and just thinking about how my life had no purpose or how I was all alone. That helped me study pain at a very young age. And it was really interesting how I survived through writing poetry specifically at that age. And one technique that I used, and I didn't know it was a technique, but something that I did is I started writing my eulogy. I started writing the words that people would say in my funeral. I started writing my death announcement. And it was really like a morbid thing. I was labeled trágica, dramática, emocional, which means tragic, dramatic, and emotional. And I was accused of seeking attention. And that was actually true. I wanted to get attention because we all need attention. And so I knew that I needed to give attention to those parts of me that were suffering, that were feeling like they didn't belong. And in poetry and in writing all of those things, I actually got to hang on. I had got to actually find purpose. I got to actually find ways to continue and to keep on and to be resilient. And I didn't know it at that time, but it's because I was processing my pain. And it's because I was actually imagining the things that I would create before I died. So, for example, I would imagine that a lot of people went to my funeral if I died. I would imagine that people said that I made a difference. Yeah, I would imagine that people suffered my loss. And that's something that I didn't actually feel in real life, that they were real. But poetry is a place where both imagination and reality collide. And so that was my coping mechanism. And even though I did, act on suicidal thinking, and I did think about it, and that's something that I still struggle with, processing my pain and learning that I can be a safe person for myself, even when I don't have, or I might not have at that in that moment, safe people in my life. That is what cemented my desire to live and help me have a different outlook and to stay alive.
Right. And I really resonate with that in a way because I also wrote a book, as you know, Triumph Over Trials. And it's similar in the way where I wrote down my experiences, and my core mission with that was to help myself, but also to help others. So
Yeah.
I really resonate with you when you say that writing is such a form of healing because, in a way, you can tell your own story when no one else wants to hear you. And then
Yes.
and then once you have it, you start sharing it with people. And in a way, you get to heal yourself. But when you look at it from a bigger picture, you realize you've helped others. And that's really the largest gift you can receive. Um,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, for someone who is struggling with suicidal thoughts or negative thoughts in general, could you perhaps provide maybe like a 5 or 10 step routine on some things that they can do to help?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and I love what you said about helping others. And that's definitely something that I discovered when I started my blog 20 years ago. I had just experienced homelessness with my two oldest daughters who are now 20 and 21. And I started writing again, and I started writing about all of the experiences that I was going through, especially my suicidal thoughts and in motherhood, and how that's such a taboo because people tell you, oh, you have so much going on for you, or you have such a life ahead of you, or you have these beautiful children, and they say be grateful and don't give up and all of these things,
Right.
when actually the main thing that I like to say, if you get nothing, I'll share some tips like you shared, but if you get nothing out of this, is when you see someone struggling or in deep pain, someone who is suffering, don't be positive, be present. And so
Like
the
that.
main things that I like to share, especially with suicidal thoughts, but with any emotional pain. Number one is to acknowledge that there are no positive emotions or negative emotions. They are all just emotions. They simply are messengers. And what I was saying about the the seeking attention,
Hmm.
it's like suicidal thoughts, I see them as a cry for help.
Right.
They're a cry for help. When someone is expressing how they feel, they're saying, I don't feel safe in the world. I don't feel like I have anyone. And so when you are present with someone and validate their experience, that helps them tremendously. And we can do that for ourselves, but it's time that we all realize that we can do it for each other too. So I have an acronym, Ashley. It's called SAVE, and it's SAVE. And that acronym expresses how to be when someone is in pain, and especially when they have suicidal thoughts, whether active or passive. I have experienced both throughout my, over 4 decades in this planet. And I laugh because, um, I sometimes say that I am 18 years old with, some other years of experience.
Yeah.
So, the acronym SAVE first starts with stay calm. And one of the things that I have experienced is that sometimes, I shared with people, hey, I am 15 years cancer free, which is true. I'm a cancer survivor. And people jump for joy. They are so excited. They're like, oh my goodness, what a warrior. I can't believe it. And it's just like this celebration, which is great. I appreciate it. But then when I share that I'm a suicide survivor, multiple times suicide survivor,
Hmm.
there's just this shock
The silence. Yeah.
and the silence. and in the changing subject. And it's like people get really uncomfortable and there's no celebration, there's no recognition, there's just blank. And so the S is for stay calm, like not show like this shock or this panic as well. I know someone really close to me and very, one of my main people in my life was experiencing suicidal thoughts, and the people around her actually called the police on her.
Oh,
And it's like, that's the not do, okay? Like
don't
to
do that.
stay calm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay calm because we want to be present. Not panicked, not positive, present. The A is for attentively listen.
Hmm.
So don't interrupt this person. Let him just vent, completely vent about what they're saying, and pay attention and really listen because, I think it was Stephen Covey that said once that we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply.
Yeah.
So don't just try to get yourself in so that you can motivate them and all of that. Just listen to them. Sometimes in listening, and that's why Ashley, you said it, writing can be so healing because no one's interrupting us and we can just get our thoughts out.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, but people feel uncomfortable, which is normal. I'm not blaming anyone for wanting to motivate or panic or, do all these things, but just to bring awareness that it's not helpful. What's helpful is that you fight that discomfort and do the next thing, which is the V and save, and it's validate their experience. So rather than saying, oh, it'll get better, hang in there, you have such a life ahead of yourself. And that's usually when I was younger, people would say that. Now they tell me, you have 4 beautiful daughters. And it's like, you know what? I know that. I know
Yeah.
all of that. I know how old I am. I know how many kids I have. I know how successful I am in many ways. It's not about that. So just validate, you know what? That sounds hard. It's very simple. That sounds hard. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. Whatever it is, just validating and understanding that people are going through a lot. And then the E is express gratitude for their vulnerability, because that breaks down the stigma. It's like, I'm grateful that you shared that versus like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this, which makes us feel like a burden, and we already feel like a burden. And the motivation, when people share motivating things with us,
Hmm.
it actually adds to that stigma because actually, let's say, you share with me that you're feeling pain or that you're feeling lonely.
Stressed.
And
Yeah.
I say to you, well, just think positively or pray. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I can't positively think it or pray it away. Then it reinforces the idea that something is wrong with me. Like you can say affirmations and you're good, but I say affirmations and they come back.
Hmm.
So obviously I don't belong in this world. So it is not helpful. And I'm gonna end this, acronym thing by saying, in the midst of pain, motivation kills and validation heals.
Yeah. I love that. And, I feel like there is a stigma where if someone is successful, that they they're expected to be happy all the time. And
Yes.
that's just not possible because everybody feels emotions at times and it's impossible. It's impossible to be happy all the time. That's just human nature. And I feel like the world has to understand that because there shouldn't be a higher bar for people of success than for people who aren't as successful yet. I mean, I think some things can be measured out like, I don't know, a formula or something like that. But when it comes to something as intangible as emotions, it's not something that's really quantitative. It's something that's more abstract. So they should be looked at from the same point of view, no matter who the person is, you know?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think that's a bar that no one should be measured by, because the thing is that all of our emotions are helpful. When
Exactly.
we feel angry, it's because one of our values is being is being violated. When we feel sad, it's because we are feeling something deeply. When we feel anxiety, it's because we care so much about something. And we, of course, have the ability to manage our emotions when we have a healthy mindset, but we have to remember that some of us are hijacked
Right.
because we're going through trauma, or maybe the trauma is being triggered. So having more compassion on people and just being there for them, because I will tell you, and I think you know this story about me, but when I was 19 years old, just a little younger than you are,
Right.
I was kidnapped by a stranger in my home country in the Dominican Republic. And it was the most denigrating and horrible experience that I could imagine. And certainly that I have experienced, even though I grew up with, a lot of violence and in a slum. But this particular time was just the most horrible experience. And it was so horrific. And yet, when I came out of it, people were focusing on, oh my gosh, you should be so grateful that you survived. And oh, let's just praise God because the pregnancy test is negative. Or, oh my goodness, you're gonna be grateful for this, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it's like I just felt so alone. Like no one is focusing that I just went through this horrific thing. And I know they meant well, and we mean well,
Hmm.
as parents and as leaders and as teachers. It's like, oh, but you're beautiful. Oh, but you have good grades. Oh, but you're amazing, or some kind of religious thing or some kind of spiritual thing. There are all of these sayings that are not helpful in the moment. As a matter of fact, trauma research shows us that post-traumatic stress disorder is created by being alone in the trauma. And
Yeah.
that actually, when people are supported through trauma, they develop post-traumatic growth instead.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm so sorry that that happened to you. I actually had no idea, but
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here and you're okay and you're able to share your story because you're helping so many young people and people of all ages. So I really, really
Thank
appreciate that. Um,
Oh, thank you.
and I really do believe that with pain and trauma, there's, like you said, a time and place for everything. Trying to
Yeah,
force happiness on somebody, like you said, it's not going to diminish the pain at all. It's just
yeah,
gonna, like you said, it's gonna put that person under pressure. Um, so
yeah.
I really urge everyone listening to, if someone is going through trauma, to give that person space and have words of support that aren't happy, because I feel like a lot of people also say that, oh, our world would be so much greater if there was no pain. And while no pain is might feel nice in the moment, I feel like pain, no matter how bad it can be, it pushes you to grow and it pushes you to become a better version of yourself. Um,
Yeah, I really appreciate that call to action, because I really do feel that there's just this glorification on happiness. And and I always talk about how, when I discovered positive thinking books, I was 9 years old, and I would walk, I lived in a slum, and so I would walk to the library in the middle of the city where, the regular people were at.
right.
And I learned that if you smile and talk about positive things, then you can win friends and influence people. And I started suppressing all of my what people called negative emotions that I knew were just my real emotions. They just happened to me. And there was no denying it, there was only suppressing it. And so you are more likable when you are positive, you are more likable when you are smiling. And that's what the kind of society that we live in. People cry and they apologize for crying.
Mm-hmm.
And, and women are frowned upon when they're angry. Men are frowned upon when they're sad. And, that's just a generalization, but societally thinking, that's kind of the construct that we've grown up with. So we got to normalize the emotions that people frown upon. We got to normalize grief. We got to normalize anger. We got to normalize shock. And one thing that it's the very most important distinction is that all emotions are welcome, but all behaviors are not.
Right.
So I could be angry at you, Ashley, and maybe I'm right for being angry. Like, oh my gosh, Ashley, how could you do this to me?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But I am not going to go and hurt you because I'm angry. I could just process my anger and be alone with my anger, maybe write something down and
Mhm.
express it to you in a healthy way. So those are options. But if I just suppress it and I'm like, oh, that Ashley, I'm so angry at her, it's gonna come out in a very ugly way if I don't process it and I just pretend that I'm not angry at you. So being angry is normal. Being sad is normal. Crying is normal. What's not normal and causes disease, dysfunction, and disconnection is letting those emotions fester inside of us.
Right.
And one example that I have of that is, 6 months after I was kidnapped, I actually was in a car accident where I was a passenger and I was declared dead on the spot. I was declared dead on arrival. And I experienced an afterlife experience for a few minutes. But I remember floating above my body, and my body had 19 broken bones, and I had a chest tube that was draining my lung. And it was just, really a place where I was in ICU and I wasn't expected to survive. And it was even a miracle that they were able to, resuscitate me. And my heart actually started after cardiac arrest. So the thing that happened, Ashley, and this is back to what you said,
Right.
is that I was looking at myself and I was seeing these people actually breaking down and crying and saying, poor little girl, she's only 19, she's gonna die. She's had nothing but abuse since she was born, and she's lived in extreme poverty, and she's been trying to do her best. And now that she's actually making it in the city, look at what happens to her. This is too much. And I actually came back to pain because I felt love. When they were motivating me and saying how I had my life ahead of me and that I would be grateful someday for this and that this was going to make me stronger, I felt alone. But now that they were like crying with me and thinking that I was not listening, I actually said, you know what? Like, maybe I'll come back. And I came back and I have all these broken bones and I had to learn how to, like use my left side because my
Right.
my right side was broken. And it was so hard. The recovery was so painful, but it was the most beautiful thing because I felt that I had a support with me. And it's not the pain that helps us grow. It's our learning from the pain. It's becoming a student of pain.
Right.
So the pain could make us bitter or it could make us better depending on what we choose. And that's what I think true positivity is.
The
I
choice.
think it's a choice. It's a choice that happens from within that person because they have the support. So I could tell you, Ashley, be happy, be positive, and you're like, you don't get it. But if I tell you, Ashley, I'm here for you and I love you, and I tell me whatever you feel and thank you for sharing it, then you can make that choice because you're going to come from a place of support and that's going to help you grow. It's love that helps us grow. And when we don't have people, because I've been there, trust me, we don't have safe people in our life, we can practice that acronym for ourselves through writing, through even speaking to ourselves, through anything, painting a picture. I think you can see right here
Oh,
that picture. My daughter painted that picture to process some pain that she was going through. So whatever that looks like for you, processing that pain is going to help you be a safe person to yourself. And if you can, please, I implore you, be a safe person for others so that we can actually get positive results out of that situation.
right. And I mean, I can't stop saying how much I admire you because I didn't know about this story either, where you were in the hospital right after you had just been kidnapped shortly after. And what really stood out to me is when you really felt that need to keep going, it was after you saw raw emotions from people around you. So, to anyone who's listening, providing raw emotion to somebody who is going through something that's unimaginable to you, it can really help them stay because it's a form of acknowledgement, right?
Yeah.
That what you went through, it really matters, and I want to be there to help you, and I care about you. That's the most important thing. Care, care, care. Because when someone's going through so much pain, I think one of the things they really want is just for somebody to care about them and to love them and to not push their pain away.
Yeah, absolutely. I call it, I have 3 steps for that. It's attention, because we are seeking attention. Yes, we are. We need it.
Yes.
Recognition and validation. It's the attention that I care about you, like you said, and you matter to me. The recognition of this is hard, and the validation that you are going through something hard, and I am here for you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your books, The Gifts of Pain, which I'm lucky enough to be a part of in the upcoming one.
Yeah, so
Well,
excited.
when I first read the title, I thought, well, this is contradictory because how can so much pain someone goes through bring a gift? But after working with you for a while now and I watched your TED Talk, I really see what you mean by that because, like I said, while pain is uncomfortable and it sucks, and in the moment it's so hard, even after the pain I went through with being bullied for so long in my life,
Mhm.
I see now that it made me stronger in a way, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I call it the alchemy of pain. And it's how we can transform that energy of pain into
Right.
something beautiful. And you're really a great example of that, which is why I'm just so excited that you're part of the Gifts of Pain series, because you truly embody that message about how you've been able to take what you went through, which is unfortunately common
Right.
and yet unique to you, and to turn that into helping others, sharing your story, creating frameworks, and providing tools and tips for others to overcome, and sharing your experience of how you practice that alchemy so that others see that it's possible. And I think that that's just the biggest gift that we can give in humanity. And like you said, there's a place for everything, because, for example, when I went through my kidnapping, and obviously I survived and I escaped, and I had to go through a trial, and I was treated, there was so much victim blaming, and I was treated as if I needed to actually show up, and that not reporting or not showing up to court, even though that was very detrimental for my mental health, that I owed it to somebody. I owed it to the people that he could hurt and all of these things. And that really was so hard for me because in that moment I was in survival mode, just and in suicidal mode. And I couldn't be thinking about helping others. That was not the focus in that moment. Now I'm in a place where I have processed that, even though it's still triggering, and that's something that I'm just gonna say in passing here, but I would like people to think about how there are some memes about if I were kidnapped, my kidnapper would give me back because this or that, or
Yeah.
would let me go. There are so many jokes that are so insensitive.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, and trivializing and making fun and poking fun at something that's so real and true and raw for many of us. So
Mhm.
when that comes up, because it does, because I'm not choosing, right now I'm choosing to participate in this conversation and talk about it, and I'm in a place for that. But when I'm consuming content, I'm not necessarily looking to be reminded or to to consume that kind of content. And what I was saying is that right now I'm focused on helping other people with my story, just like you are with your story. But let's stop, demanding people to turn it into a blessing and a lesson to others when it's still premature. Give us the space to heal, give us the space to process it. And then in turn, it's going to be a natural progression and a natural feeling that we're going to help others in the way that we can. Sometimes that looks like a private talk. Sometimes it looks like national and international advocacy. For you, it's a talk, is a book. For other people, it might just be sitting in the living room with someone they know. But let's also stop demanding people who have been through something traumatic, um, acting like they owe any type of explanation or behavior to others, because that is also very toxic and goes right along with what I call the poisonous positivity.
Mhm.
Is the poisonous demands and I would say expectations that are imposed on us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Elayna. Our time is coming to an end, but I wanted to, I have a final question, and it's like, could you share like maybe one sentence or one last piece of wisdom for our listeners?
Wow. Okay, that I have so much. But I think what's coming to me right now is that practice that I always share, that's going to help us find a positive day
Mhm.
within ourselves. And it's my three-step formula. It's a practice that I call dating your pain. And it's what keeps me here, is what keeps me functioning, is what helps me, be a mom, be an entrepreneur, be a speaker, be a coach. It's to be there for myself. So in the morning when I wake up, I take 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, to date my pain. And that looks like it has three steps: is see, sense, and say. And first you see any kind of situation, you recall a memory or something that's bothering you right now, or something that maybe might be affecting you, and you access that pain, right? Through your mind. You see it in your mind. Then you sense it. You sense in your body where that's creating either friction or tension or tingling, some kind of sensation. So you see and sense, and then say. And what you're going to say is validating words of attention, recognition, and validation to yourself. And for example, I would, see an image of something that happened to me, and I would sense it. I'm feeling it right now, kind of like around here. And
Right.
then I would say, Elayna, yeah, that was hard. I can see how that really broke your heart. I'm sad that that happened to you, and I'm here for you. Elayna, I love you. And I know that this is hard and that you feel it deeply. Thank you for sharing that with me. And that's with myself, just like I would with my best friend, just like I would with somebody that I love, just like I would with someone I care about. I would be there for myself. And it takes 2 minutes because it only takes 90 seconds to process any emotions. And that's proven by science. And so 2 minutes every day, just validate your pain through dating your pain. And when you're there for yourself, you're going to be equipped to be there for others.
Exactly. Wow. Thank you so much, Elayna. I mean, you're such a rock star, and I'm so lucky to have you on this episode and to know you personally in my life.
I'm
So,
so lucky to know you. You're a blessing and a joy and such an example for everyone. And thank you for making this space for us to share. You're incredible, and I'm just honored. Thank you.